Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place of everything related to Amazon FBA and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy. Today, we bring you a very special guest. His name is Yoni Kozminski, and he's the founder and CEO of Multiply Me and Scala, where they actually specialize on helping you build your team overseas and also scale your business forward. So that's why I think there is no other better person than you, Johnny, to cover today's topic, which is going to be how to hire people overseas and how we can use this to actually scale your Amazon business specifically. So before we jump into that, for sure, let me give you a few minutes to so you can introduce yourself, tell the audience who you are, what your company does, and for sure we can go from there.
Vincenzo, I've got to say, just hearing you talk, I just want you to keep talking. I know I'm the guest here, but your accent, I mean, it's so crisp. Mate, I love it. So firstly, thank you so much for having me on the show. Really pleasure to be here and an honor. I won't bore the audience too much, going too detailed into my background, but to keep it as short as possible, so I can give you guys a bit of perspective into, why am I even relevant to talk about topics like this? So I spent about a decade in creative advertising and digital marketing strategy. That was my background. So before people started talking about offsite traffic, things like social media, when it was coming up in the world, that was my background. So I launched Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest for Mercedes-Benz, Australia, New Zealand. I grew up in a time where, it was SEO, PPC. I was the largest Facebook media buyer in Australia. I worked strategy for Sony and MasterCard and Mercedes-Benz and Medtronic. So everything that you're doing at Ecomcy, that's been my life, building, amazing. Growing agencies. So I have a very, very special place in my heart for just how difficult it is to build what you're building. And so for anyone listening in, give Vincenzo all the respect you deserve.
Thank you.
And be kind to any of your agency partners. I promise you, they are working around the clock to get the results for you, the client.
Yes.
But anyway, fast forward, I had a little stretch in Amazon myself. I grew an Amazon business from 2 to 5 million in 12 months, and that was acquired by Thrasio. Yeah. And on the back of that experience, I realized, look, there's a lot of ways in which we can help sellers professionalize their operation, for lack of a better term. And so two of the businesses, Multiply Me is an end-to-end executive search and HR function into the Philippines. So we find high-level talent. So throw the word VA out of your vocabulary. We are finding you brand managers, PPC managers, ops managers, inventory, supply chain, logistics. Like, that's our world. And then on the other side is Scala, which is a process improvement management consulting practice where we go into agencies and aggregators and larger e-commerce businesses to build out their systems based on people, process, and technology. So think of us like McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Deloitte, EY, Accenture, but specialized in e-commerce. And this is great for anyone in the space because what we do is we do it at a fraction of the price because all of our talent is out of the Philippines. So why am I even here to talk about hiring in, offshore countries or countries that are not, specialized in where you are right now and scale? We grew from a team of 4 to over 300 on payroll in about 2.5-3 years.
That's amazing.
And so we're adding sort of 30 odd people every single month. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of it.
For sure.
For anyone
who's going through it. I can definitely see
that. But anyone who's going through it, there's always going to be challenges and nothing is seamless. Just like in agency life, things can be going great, but there are always going to be challenges. So anyway, I've gone on probably longer than I should have, but just wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing your background and all your experience. I think that's why it's great to have you today, because I think a lot of people think whenever they start an Amazon business, specifically within the e-commerce space, most of people want to do everything themselves, right? They never think about about growing their team, about scaling. And I think that's a very important topic to touch today, because the reality is that we have seen right now what is happening worldwide in terms of, if you don't focus on growing your team, if you don't focus on the long-term approach, it can happen that you end up yourself basically reaching the bottleneck of what you can achieve with your business, and that can be the detriment of your business, right? So I think to start transitioning into today's topic, which is basically how we can focus what are the tips we should be implementing to hire your team overseas and scale it. I think the first most important question is when, for example, when a client comes to you, Johnny, and they want to understand if that's the right time or not, how would you advise a e-commerce seller or a business owner in the Amazon space to know, okay, now is the right moment to scale, now is the right moment to look for overseas and to grow my team? When do you think that's the pivotal moment when they should make that decision in their business?
Yeah, Vincenzo, great question. So I think that there is a few aspects that you want to look at, and I'll talk about firstly, when do you hire someone in the first
Mm,
instance period, and then potentially the differences of what that looks like overseas. I would say that us as a business specifically, we're working with people who are looking to build dedicated teams. So if it's to work with Multiply Me and you're looking for someone who's going to do 4 hours a week, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, we're not going to be the solution for you. But if you are looking deep within inside of yourself and trying to say, hey, should I scale? Should I start to grow? First is understanding, where do you sit in market today? So
yeah,
have you found your product market fit? So for Ecomcy, do I have more work in the day than I have hours? And
yeah,
also, am I doing the work that is truly meaningful to me and things that I really feel like I'm best at? Like the start of any business,
yeah,
typically speaking, ones that especially are not venture backed, we're bootstrapped. And I know a lot of listeners, I'm sure, probably are the same.
yeah,
You need to sort of balance between, can I afford it versus, is this where I'm at my best? And so defining what success looks like is critical. So when you start to look at bringing people on, it's, either I have a lack of a skill set, I'm going to bring in a professional to help handle that component of the work. So me, I'm more on the creative side. I am terrible when it comes to math and anything that relates to numbers. Fortunately, my co-founder is a fantastic operator and
that's right.
incredible when it comes to math. So I was very lucky in that case to find him and for us to work together. But I would say when you're looking to hire, really starting to understand. So one of the things that I like to tell people is, if you break down your week and you look at how you're actually investing it, you're investing your time, and you actually look at it from a standpoint, hopefully you're tracking what you're actually delivering on, and you're not just,
Yeah.
my calendar is totally stacked with every single minute of what I'm doing. So I
Yeah,
have sort of a visual cue. Yeah. Do you do the same, Vincenzo?
yeah, the same. Yeah, the same. I mean, for example, even for example, if I need to exercise or having a lunch or meditating, if I don't put that in the calendar, then a meeting just get locked in, and then I don't have time to do anything else. So I do the same. Yeah,
And that's like the best thing that you can do. I have on mine every morning. It says morning routine, Leo and Dusty. For three
yeah,
hours, I'm with my dog and my son,
that's great.
and that's what I do. It's in the calendar so that I
Yeah,
do.
the meetings don't get in.
Exactly right. So, you got to be protective of your time. You got to be protective of also the deep work time where you want to invest in that focus. And so, if you are fortunate enough to be tracking how you're investing your time, what I would suggest is look at all the things that you're doing in your calendar
Yeah,
and work backwards, stating, if this is something that needs to uniquely be me, if I'm the only person currently that can do it. I mean, I'm going to say, anything that relates to the hustle culture, anything that
yeah,
relates to, just keep putting in more, it's not
yeah.
sustainable, guys. Like,
No,
forget
100%.
that. Leave that shit at home. Well, just get it out of your
Yeah, yeah,
vocabulary
for
and your
sure.
mindset, because it's not sustainable. So break down how you're spending your time. Once you understand how you're spending it, things that have to be you at the current state, mark it a 5. Things that you believe that you can delegate to someone else, mark it a 1 or a 2, and sort of
Yeah,
go through and start to figure out, how do I effectively move away from doing things or
yeah,
handing things off to people that are not myself. So I'd say that's the first sort of psychological, logical standpoint that you will do when it comes
yeah,
to delegation, and therefore hiring your first team member. So
yeah. I
so
mean,
that's
I'm totally with you on this. I think doing that and trying to start thinking how you can free up your time by hiring more people, that's super important. But I also think maybe you also agree with me on this, is that sometimes when you're looking to hire, you shouldn't always just focus on people that is just gonna do admin work or things that maybe don't need any kind of strategy. I think if you really want to reach the next phase in your business, I think you should reach a point where you are not the smartest guys on the room, right? You want to hire people that sometimes is smarter than you in advertising, smarter than you in SOPs, because I feel that if you just focus on hiring people that is basically just doing admin work and not thinking outside the box, you're gonna reach a plateau, right?
Couldn't have put it better myself, Vincenzo. So I'll
Yeah.
say this: I'm the dumbest guy in my company by far. And I hope that that remains to be true
Yeah.
forever, because that's how you create true intrinsic value, is to bring in people that are smarter than you, that can deliver. So you sort of brought up a real hot button topic for me, and something that I really like to share with people on how
Sure.
we go about our hiring process inside of Multiply Me when we're looking. So, one of the easy things that you could do is, okay, I know this person, I'll just bring them in, or
Yeah.
I'm going to get a VA, which I hate
Yeah.
that term. I think it should be killed, and they'll do
Yeah.
some admin tasks. And so, two things on that. One is that you need to delegate accountability and responsibility,
Mm.
not tasks. When you delegate tasks, you are still the owner and accountable for everything
Yep.
that's delivered. And that's not really, it's not scalable. You
No.
still have to be the driving force. But in order to prevent that from happening, what we do inside of Multiply Me is we'll always define the seat. So, what is the mission? What does success look like? If I'm to hire someone, what is a 2 or 3 line maximum of, let's use PPC,
Yeah.
PPC manager, for example. So the mission of the PPC manager is to ensure that our ACOS remain at a desirable rate, and that it is constantly updated and checked, so that our clients are having the optimal performance for their Amazon PPC management. Something,
Yeah.
something a little bit more eloquent than that, but
Yeah.
literally that short. It should be that short. So that that's the guiding light. And then on the back of deciding what that looks like, it's, well, what are the outcomes? What do they
Mm.
need to be doing in order to achieve that mission? So the next step would be, right, well, obviously they need to be really diligent in being able to go in and check, Amazon Ads Manager every day. They need to be reporting on it and have effective understanding of what healthy looks like, understanding the types of keywords they're going about. So you're starting to get my drift here, in that
Yeah.
you're defining the success or the outcomes that are needed to actually be able to succeed in that mission. And then the last thing that we do, and I would recommend everyone does as well, is, what are the attributes? So what does this person need to have achieved historically, or how do they have to be wired? It doesn't need to be a one-to-one.
Yeah.
What do they need to effectively have to achieve in order to be successful in delivering on those outcomes and succeeding in that mission? So the attributes might look like very analytical, or has
Yeah.
experience working in Google AdWords management, or search engine marketing, or they have demonstrable experience in PPC management. So
Yeah.
you sort of build it that way, and all of a sudden the equation changes. You're no longer delegating, okay, on a Monday I want you to go
Yeah.
in and look at this, and this is how I do my PPC management. It totally shifts the mindset. So I know I've
Yeah.
given you a long-winded response
Yeah,
here,
it
Vincenzo.
makes total sense. I mean, in summary, basically, what you want to achieve is that that person becomes an extension of you in terms of independency and taking action, rather than just copycatting everything that you just said, right? And that's actually now is gonna bring me to another question I wanted to make you, which is sometimes when people is looking to hire overseas and make a team, they always have that question around: is it better to, let's say, hire somebody that's already executive, already have plenty of experience within the e-commerce space, or is it better to hire somebody that maybe is more junior, more getting started, and train them with my SOPs, I would say processes, culture, or whatever you want to call it? So what do you usually see is usually the most common approach, and maybe if you can mention what could be the positive and negative side of maybe doing one on another? Yeah.
For sure. So I'm trying to
Mhm.
unpack all the questions there, and these are all great
Yeah.
questions. So I would say, firstly, if you built a great system, and especially if you built a great training ground for team members, then there's no reason why you wouldn't run them through the
Yeah.
processes that you've built. I mean, that's great. If you've taken the time to really document out, like, and again, let's just keep using the example of PPC management.
Yeah.
If you've documented out what great PPC management looks like, then fantastic. What does that mean? Well, you actually need a lower skilled team member And if you are to lose them, then ultimately they're much more replaceable. You don't want to create a culture of linchpins inside of your business. It's just, it's risky. And the reality is you want people to continue to add more value concurrently. And also, we were talking a little bit before we hit record, but in light of what's happened inside of Thrasio and their sort of over-indexation of the acquisition pipeline and how they're not as profitable as they had hoped, that just goes to show that rather than just bringing on ex-Wharton $250,000 a year guys who are going to be doing things that they're probably bored doing, you can find talent that I would argue are more capable in delivering it at a fraction of the cost. So I'm just going to take a step back and say, we've specifically focused on the Philippines. And we did that for a number of reasons. When we were sort of assessing, when we were building out the team in the Amazon agency or the Amazon FBA brand management business that we had, I'm keep throwing in agency and brand management, but I was a private label seller. I was a private label seller. That's really what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I was in the game, so apologies, guys, listening in. But ultimately, when you look at the Philippines, it's a population of 120 million people. Inside it, so huge, it's about a third the size of the US. When you look at the DNA culturally, you have people that are college educated in the business process outsourcing BPO space, so 95% or higher. Inside of that, all education is done in English. So their literacy and spoken English is at a level that's much higher than similar countries when you look at cost of living, like Pakistan and India and so on. And then couple that with the DNA. Culturally, they are intrinsically detail orientated. So you'll find it harder to find people anywhere else in the world that are as detail orientated. So when you're building out a system and you want people to actually follow the rules, they're super non-confrontational, they're loyal, they're motivated, job security is really critical. So it's the perfect breeding ground to find incredibly talented individuals who are committed to the vision of the business. And, that's why we focus on there. So I would just say, and I'm a believer that we're talking today about globally dispersed teams. It doesn't matter if it's in Pakistan or India or Sri Lanka or Argentina or Brazil or the US or Italy or wherever you are in the world, Mexico. We're all used to this remote culture now, given the fact that COVID has been around for a couple of years. So I'd say one of the reasons that we exist as a business is not just to find great talent, right? Which we have 20 full-time recruiters, and that's great. It's actually on the other side, we want to help train people to be better managers. And so, I picked up this quote: "To be unclear is to be unkind," and I just keep using it over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So, and I need to figure out who actually said it. I was
That's a good one.
I was at the EOS conference. You can see over my shoulder here a couple.
I can see.
So I was at the EOS conference a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things I've come back to is giving clarity to what the expectations are for a team member that you're bringing on, especially in a globally dispersed remote working location, is the only way that you can stay both aligned and also create intrinsic motivation. So if I know what success looks like in 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, I know what I'm working toward and I have a yardstick to work toward it. So I'd say when it comes to working with anyone globally, really helping them understand what success looks like is probably going to be the most important thing that you set up as a manager. And when you go to hiring for the first time, set the expectations, because and I'll be the first one to put my hand up and say, I hired tons of people early on and, just said, what, they'll figure it out. They'll do it. And off we go. And
I was going to say that. Yeah. The same here.
and think about it as well. I mean, I'm guilty of this too. It's like, fuck, I'm hiring all these people, but I don't feel like I'm really getting anything done or really achieving great success. And that was the big shift for me, is that as soon as we started defining what success looked like, building our 1 year, 3 year plan, working backwards on how we achieve it, that's when everything clicked into gear. So I'd say, coming back to your, one of your first questions, understanding yourself, understanding how you spend your time, understanding how you can then start to delegate and bring in professionals to help subset what you lack is going to be your way forward in building true scalability. And so leveraging talent that costs probably a third to a quarter of what it would be in the US, and similar, price location. Same here in Israel. I live in Tel Aviv, which is the most expensive city on planet
Yeah.
Earth right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately for me. But anyway, I would say I am going on a little bit, but passionate
That's
about the
great.
topic.
Yeah, I mean, I love all the points you're touching, and I think the last section where you're mentioning setting expectation, that's such a important thing to always consider whenever you're hiring, because I totally agree with you. I have met so many people that say, "Oh, I have tried hiring overseas, this and that, but it didn't work out." But when you really investigate further, the only thing that they did is like, let's say, for example, they have an issue with social media. Oh, let's go and find somebody that knows social media, fix it. It's like, okay, but you're not giving what are your goals in terms of milestones, what you want to achieve, what is the long-term approach of your company. So fully on board with you. I think if you just think the hiring is gonna fix the issue, I think sometimes even make it worse, right? So it's very clear that very important that you set those expectations from the very beginning, for sure, 100%.
Totally, totally. And when you get to the stage where I've got about 100 people reporting into me, I can't even tell you, when you hire the wrong senior manager,
Wow,
what
yeah, it's a
chaos that
madness.
actually can create in your organization. Because now we're dealing with, that it's the information that they share with you, and they're leading a whole team of 10, 15 people. It can create total disarray. So having clarity, being aligned on the vision, and understanding how to actually deliver that, it's
Yeah,
critical. That's what's going to
yeah,
set you up for success when you hire
yeah.
anyone.
For sure, and I think now that you also touched on the topic of trust on aggregators, I think that's exactly what is happening. They're hiring this executive that maybe they don't have this culture of working with so many people under them, or maybe in the commerce space. I mean, it can be so many factors, but I think one of the biggest issues that they try to scale so fast without creating a culture and a system, and I think that's why we're seeing so many people in the aggregator space struggling at the moment with that. Yeah,
Definitely, definitely. I mean, to that effect, I mean, to Thrasio, we should all be thanking Thrasio
yeah,
in the sense that this industry, the aggregator industry, wouldn't exist without them.
yeah.
And, giving them a little bit of grace here, to go from a team of 4 to 2,000 in
Wow, yeah,
4
it's
years
huge.
is insane, and that's tough for anyone. But I think, for me, when I look at the space and what's caused all of this, is there was just such a push to acquire the best assets, the
Yeah,
best brands. And so it was a race against time. So it
yeah,
was M&A, mergers and acquisitions, that were driving the space. And no
yeah.
one really thought, holy shit, like, we're going to acquire this brand. The only way that we actually make money is if we grow it
Operate them. Yeah.
and operate them at scale. And
Yeah.
so when you over-index on having too many chefs and not enough cooks in the kitchen, that's sort of where you find yourself. And again, I don't know the inner workings inside, but I
Yeah,
can
for
only
sure.
imagine. I mean, 260 plus brands they acquired. It's
It's
just
crazy.
insane.
And you need to add on top of that everything that's happening in China, logistics issue or overseas, everything that's happening with the war. I mean, is if you add that to the fire, it becomes an explosion, right?
I mean, that's what we're seeing, and it's not just Thrasio. We're
Yeah,
already
all of
starting to
them.
see consolidation. Factory 14 was acquired. I
Yeah.
just saw that OSOME Group also acquired an aggregator in the US, a distressed one. So we're going to see consolidation this year, and I've been preaching this for years now. But you've got to be planning and thinking about what it is to operate at scale, because if you don't, these are the types of things that you can expect.
Yeah. So that means, I mean, just to see what you think on this perspective, do you see them maybe some aggregators start diversifying in terms of hiring so many executives actually focusing on what we're just talking today, which is growing teams overseas? Do you see that down the line happening to
I
where
mean, that
company?
would, I mean, if you break down like what's happened here, a few of the things that I see happening on the back of, Thrasio's announcement is one, most, a lot of aggregators are going to put a pause on acquisitions.
Yeah.
So, Thrasio probably won't buy a brand for,
Yeah.
who
Only they
knows?
fix everything. Yeah.
Unlikely this year. I also don't believe that these businesses need to buy more brands. I don't see that as the solution. I think that what they need to focus on is, how do we actually build a profitable business? So I think that we're in a really good spot to be able to offset the high costs, bringing in high value talent, and
Yeah.
also from the Escala side, actually building these systems that are truly scalable as they understand what's the org strategy, who do I need and when do I need them, rather than just hiring everyone all at once and saying, let's go. So
Yeah.
I think that also this isn't, to me, it's not a red flag about the industry either. I see nothing but growth here. I just
Yeah.
feel like,
Consolidation of everything that's happening, basically. Yeah.
the cream will rise to the top, and people just got a little bit over the front of their skis here in trying to buy as many things as they could, because now we see, it's a bear market right now in general. Like, there's not as many great brands because they've all been snapped up. And so, I think if we sat down in 12 months from now, we'd be having a very different conversation, saying, okay, people are buying again, there's lots of things going on, it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, now that we're just touching on this on these topics, which is around hiring and some of the mistakes when you hire so many people, I would like to start shifting towards the this question, which is usually, if you can cover them, what are some of the other mistakes besides hiring too many people that you see people doing whenever they want to scale their business and bringing people within their company? What are the tips or that you should advise people to avoid some of these mistakes that you say, man, they shouldn't be doing this because this is gonna cause this, and this, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, so great. Again, I'm loving the questions. I feel like you've been doing this for a lifetime, mate. I was
Man,
not.
just 2 months.
I was not nearly where you are, and I'm probably still not even as good as you, mate, when it
No,
comes to
come on,
being
man.
a
You're better,
host.
man.
Disagree. We'll agree to disagree here. But what I'll say is, one of the things that we focus on, and the other reason why Multiply Me has been able to grow effectively, is because we built a process improvement consulting practice in Escala. So Escala renders services all the time to Multiply Me, and that's how we're able to build it efficiently, effectively. Like, we're not trying to bring on, if today you said, I'm going to bring you 1,000 leads, 1,000 more leads than you guys are used to, it would break our system.
Yeah.
We're not ready for that. So we focus on building systems. And the way we define a system is the perfect harmony between people, process, and technology. So understanding, what can I automate, or what technology can I leverage to reduce redundancies as it relates to, most importantly, like things like, if a piece of technology can do the work, then a human shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah,
Like, it's not going to be meaningful work in most
for sure.
cases, right? So trying to focus on that. But I would say how we build process internally is we take what's called a top-down approach in building our sort of process hierarchy. So we'll build our core processes. We'll understand what are the core driving functions inside of each business that we work with and internally, and then
Yeah.
understanding what are the sub processes or the process groups first. What are those process groups that enable you actually to get it done? So an example of a core process would be new product discovery would be a sub process, and a core process might look like product development, right?
Yeah,
And
I
then
see.
we go into the sub processes of, who's the individual delivery. So, the industrial engineer who's responsible for identifying and building products, and each of the steps that they'll do. So when you're building our process, it's very common that you'll take a bottom up approach, where it will say, right, you want to hire someone, you want them to be the person who manages your podcast. And
Yeah.
you'll start to just say, right, well, what you'll do is you'll email them, you'll email the potential guests, you'll reach out, you'll see if they want to be on the show. On the back of that, they'll fill out a form, and on
Yeah.
that, I'll get on the show, and then we'll do post-production, all these steps, right? But what you
Yeah.
need to understand, or what the person needs to understand, is, well, where does that fit inside of the business? So
Yeah.
right. So there's the video production team, and there's, the lighting. I mean, you've got such a beautiful background there, mate. You probably got like
Yeah,
a
thank you.
lighting designer and
Lighting engineer, yeah.
yeah, and the copywriter.
Yeah.
So you need to think about how each of these things interact. And when you talk about Amazon, we like to use the example of listing creation. So listing creation might seem like a very simple task, but when you actually think through it, well, what needed to happen? You needed to do all the keyword research to understand what we're going to list. I need to get the graphic designer involved to understand. I need a copywriter to be able to take all that information to understand how I'm going to write it out. But hang on a second. Now I need the PPC manager to get involved. And so you see pretty quickly that the inventory manager, who hasn't actually got all the inventory that they need to actually go live to support the launch strategy that you built. So listing creation is one of the things that touches so many different core functions in a business. And it's just, it's a monster, right? So
Wow. Yeah, you opened my mind just now. Yeah, so many things we need to fix for sure.
Well, and that's for all of us, right? But I guess
Yeah.
the main thing is that if you start thinking about what are the core drivers of my business, and then where do the people interact, you'll start to miss less things because you've built each of the different stages all the way through to the working SOPs, so that our sort of litmus test, or how we define success, is any person in the business should be able to, within 15 seconds, be able to understand how to do whatever they're supposed to be doing,
Mm,
going from the process groups to core processes, the sub processes, to the SOPs, to the working activities. And that's how we structure all of our documentation. So
that's
um,
great.
we could do a whole
Yeah.
hour on this
Yeah,
topic,
man.
but there's a little glimpse.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, first of all, I want to thank you for all the content. I think with this last answer, you clear a lot of things for me and for all the people that's listening in. So I appreciate that. And yes, I mean, before for sure we conclude today's episode, I want you to give you a few minutes so you can share where people can find you, your companies, how can people get start working with your team so they can reach out. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. So again, I won't bore you guys, but if you're looking to build a team out of the Philippines and you're looking for full-time talent, specifically, growing teams, then Multiply Me, spelt me, MII.com, is where you go. You can click on the client section, you can book in a call. Kat's super talented and she'll walk you through our process and be able to help you. And on the other side is Escala. Weareescala.com is the website. And in it, you'll see, again, all the information. You can get on the discovery call with either Kevin or Lippy, and they'll walk you through exactly what happens. If you're looking to reach out to me specifically, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
Yoni
for sure.
Kozminski, you can find
Yeah.
me there, or just my name at either one of those email addresses. And, I'll get back to you. I'm pretty protective of my time, but I will
Yeah,
get
for
back to
sure.
you eventually.
That's how it should be. That's how it should be. But then, Yoni, yeah, once again, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy man. So all the knowledge you dropped today is gold for sure for our audience and myself. So definitely looking forward to see you on a future podcast so we can keep discussing these topics. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Take care, Johnny. Bye bye.